Would you, given that how the nature of an injury will actually affect, for example, the range of motion and the mechanics in that way, uh, how agnostic would you be on, for example, specific injury affecting having a certain like archetype of gait? Would it be pretty much like you would expect them to manifest in different ways, or you would expect them to manifest in different ways, but it might not be detectable?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and we do think that they're going to start to manifest in different ways, and we have a little bit of idea that that's possible. But I do think that sometimes we look at this measure, so we have about 3 or 4 measures that we're looking at, and we do think that in some respects we do need a collection of measurements. So this AR modeling is going to be great to identify that there is a problem, and then we're going to use some of our Poncare plots to add to it to say, okay, not only are you pathological, but if you have differences in your Poncare plots as well, then you're going to also add to it and say we can better specify. So we don't, I think each one of these is going to be great in actually identifying, healthy and pathological, but to truly get the subtleties of the different movement patterns, I think you're going to need a couple of these metrics in conjunction and eventually getting back to that, the algorithm. So we do think it's possible.
Yeah. One other question that I had was, were these different regions, did patients who fell within those regions, is that because their location sort of typified their all their gait, all their strides, or is it that, for example, that they were sort of that they had like their I don't know, 25% or 50% most anomalous strides looked more like this? Um,
Well, so let me just, yeah, because fortunately this was just on the healthy individuals thus
mhm.
far, but yeah, no, I think that they were, everybody kind of was represented that way. So sorry, ask her. Maybe I'm not
Oh,
understanding.
oh yeah, sorry. I guess what I was wondering was, when you are changing the symmetry of the walking and you see them starting to fall into different places,
Mhm.
is the idea that all each of their strides looks odd compared to the other archetypes, or is it that for example, like 50% of them look odd and then they all look more the same for the rest of them, sort of like how like even even unhealthy people look healthy with regard to certain dimensions some of the time. It's just like when things go really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess, is it more like a central thing tendency or more like their extreme distribution thing?
Yeah, no, I think when we start to do these perturbations, we do see that all of their strides are really disruptive, and it just magnifies the anomalies that they have in their gait. So if we think about like when you're doing symmetric walking, you might pick up little subtleties in their gait parameters, but as we kind of put in the 0.25 and the 0.5 perturbations, there are differences between the different classes of individuals. It really does kind of manifest very differently and very apparently. So yeah, so I think applying these perturbations just magnifies the subtleties and the patterns that we would see during their symmetric walking. Oh no.
Yeah, yeah, cool. I guess just because I was imagining it could go one of two ways. One, the body adapts like rapidly, and it just sort of goes with the, I guess, the two side flow. And the other would be essentially that you can see the body or the gait rebelling against it while trying to sort of essentially try to do a balancing act between what the more natural gait is and what the unnatural gait is.
Yeah, so no, these are great questions. Some of them are actually going to lead to some of the future slides. But yeah, what we notice is that, like you said, different people adapt differently. So healthy controls, this is more disruptive. But we have seen that and then in individuals with certain pathological conditions, this is more stabilizing. And what's been interesting is we can actually track their changes, kind of looking, we've recently done this where we kind of looked at the repeated measures, looked at over time, we've had them do this asymmetric walking for 10, 15 minutes. And it's been interesting to see with this kind of exponential decay to stabilizing region. So it has been interesting to see how people adapt to this. So healthy individuals, this is really destabilizing. They're going to have disruptive gait for the most part, but we have seen individual with pathological conditions. It actually is somewhat renormalizing. So it's pretty cool how you respond to it. And again, that is reflective of your system and what's going on in there. So yeah, no, these are great questions.